Well, welcome back again this week, and guess what? I'm going to keep a promise that I've made the last couple of weeks to show you the duplicity of the Obama administration and others who are trying to promote a new world order through the so-called free trade agenda. Now, some people do not realize how dangerous this is, and sometimes we get a little bogged down with the acronyms and the initialized names of some of the organizations involved and so on. And sometimes it's even kind of boring. I mean, after all, talking about trade is not a fascinating subject. But it is very important, and I ask you to bear with me. First of all, I want to show you an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago. And the title of it is, "On Beijing's Asia Map, All Roads Lead to China." In other words, it's an article to show that the Chinese mean to control all of the trade and economic integration from the Middle East clear over to the Pacific Ocean and beyond, as far as that's concerned. Here is another one out of the Wall Street Journal, but this is a full-page ad put in the Wall Street Journal by the Chinese government. Now, the copy in here is not written by any writer or editor that works for the Wall Street Journal. This is copy that's put in there under the approval, written and under the approval of the Chinese Communist government. Now let me read you a sentence out of here because it's very interesting, and we tend to kind of gloss over these things when we read them. Very professionally written so that they tell you the truth, but you've got to understand every word and nuance of what they're saying. China's goal is to counter the growing trend of fragmentation in the region that directly undermines economic integration. In other words, in the region that we were just talking about, they want to economically integrate that whole region, which means when you're talking about integration, that is not independence, that is not freedom, that is an economic integrated regional government run out of Beijing. And so they say they want to counter the growing trend of fragmentation in the region that directly undermines economic integration. And fragmentation, when you interpret it in this context, means independence. In other words, they do not want any independent country within this economically integrated region of the world run out of Beijing. Very interesting, but you kind of tend to gloss that over when you first read it. Now here comes the duplicity that's involved between the triumvirate of Moscow, Beijing, and Washington, D.C. They always make it look as though they are enemies, that they don't work together. But they do work together behind the scenes on so many different things. One of the things they're involved in is the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, which includes all of North America, pretty much the west coast of South America, and most of the countries in the Pacific Rim, Japan, China, Russia, that sort of thing, Australia, so on and so forth. Now the APEC leaders want to form what they call the FTAAP, which is the Free Trade Area of the Asia Pacific. And that is something that's creeping into a lot of articles now as if it is a Chinese initiative. It's not the American initiative, it's the Chinese initiative. Whereas the American initiative is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that's the TPP. That's good. That's American. This is bad, the FTAAP, because that's Chinese. That's the general flavor of these articles. And this is being done in order to make the American businessman support the TPP in opposition to the bad Chinese program of the FTAAP. And yet we know that this is the program of APEC. And the United States is a leader in APEC, just as the Chinese are. They're working together on this. In fact, you know, we have a lot of videos that we see today that we can go back and show how Obama's contradicting himself, for instance. One of those that we all are well aware of right now is that he says that he has the power to do what he did with immigration. But for years, he's been caught on television and video saying he did not have that power. We even see it in regard with the Obamacare business, where this gentleman said that the American people were too stupid to really understand what was going on. In this electronic age that we live in, these people forget what they said, or just forget that maybe somebody captured them on tape, video, Facebook, whatever, saying and doing certain things. And in this case, we caught them doing the same thing in regard to this free trade agenda. Because, again, today, they're trying to make it sound as if the FTAAP is a Chinese initiative. Back in 2010, from the whitehouse.gov, we have a press release that they issued in the name of APEC, which they are a leader of, saying this. Listen to this. This is a quote. Based on the results of this work, we have agreed that now is the time for APEC to translate FTAAP from an aspirational to a more concrete vision. To that end, we instruct APEC to take concrete steps toward realization of an FTAAP, which is a major instrument to further APEC's regional economic integration agenda. So we have the White House giving this press release out in agreement as a leader of APEC that they've got to move towards the FTAAP. And so what we see is that the TPP is simply a salami slice, if you will, toward that end. And the TPP, which is supposedly an American initiative, does not include China right now, doesn't include Russia. But when we look at this, we realize, wait a minute, this whole thing involves Russia, China, and the United States towards economic integration of Asia under the leadership of Beijing itself. Let me reread this again. Based on the results of this work, we have agreed that now is the time for APEC to translate the FTAAP from an aspirational, in other words, just an idea, to a more concrete vision. To that end, we instruct APEC to take concrete steps toward realization of an FTAAP, which is a major instrument to further APEC's regional economic integration agenda. It's all about integration, ladies and gentlemen. They used the word. And it's dangerous. It means that we would lose our independence over our own economy if we integrate in this superstructure that they're trying to create a step at a time. The first step is the TPP, and then the FTAAP. And all the while, this was the plan, but they're playing us off with the TPP is good, the FTAAP is bad, kind of an agenda in order to get the American businessman fooled into getting his foot on the path towards integrating all of these countries together into what they call the New World Order. I hope that kind of explains it for you. It's kind of convoluted. You really have to look at a lot of things. But once you look at it and realize what's going on, it's quite astonishing to see the duplicity of these people and how they fool the American businessman. Until next week, we'll see you then.